Jane, a young virgin raised by a grandmother who firmly instilled sexual morals in her, shows up for a routine doctor's appointment but ends up being mistakenly inseminated by Louisa, a devastated doctor whose partner just cheated on her. In her distracted state, Louisa mixes up the procedures and inseminates Jane instead of Petra, her actual patient who's waiting in the next consultation room hoping for a child. A few weeks later, Jane finds out she's pregnant on the same day Raphael and Petra discover Louisa's mistake. Meanwhile, Michael, who had planned to propose to Jane, is forced to put everything on hold as he and Jane agree to pretend they're engaged, at least until the situation settles and both families stop asking questions. As their small celebration continues, Michael's brother suddenly shows up, issuing a quiet threat to expose a darker side of him, but he's quickly warned not to push further.
Don't treat me like that. Your fiancé. They think you're such a good guy.
Do not threaten me. Do you understand me?
Raphael, on the other hand, confides in his close friend and business partner, Zazo, explaining that he wants to do right by Petra, at least in return for how she stood by him during his battle with cancer.
Dude, this is the same girl who would not leave your side when you were going through chemo.
Though he's completely unaware that Zazo and his wife are secretly having an affair behind his back. Louisa later reveals that the accidental carrier is Jane, who works at Raphael's hotel and is, coincidentally, the same woman he once shared a kiss with long ago. When they meet, she admits that she's leaning toward not keeping the pregnancy, hoping not to follow the same path her mother once took.
I'm not ready to be a mom.
We take it.
And then what? I'm not ready, that this wasn't the plan, that I have worked so hard every second.
But her grandmother quickly pushes back, reminding her of how Xiomara chose to raise her rather than abandon her, despite having gotten pregnant out of wedlock. Meanwhile, Jane's father, who lost contact with Xiomara the same day she discovered Xiomara's pregnancy, finally resurfaces after all these years, claiming he was kept in the dark about Jane's existence. What he doesn't realize is that Jane already knows him well, as he just happens to be her favorite telenovela star. Michael, still holding on to hope that she'll terminate the pregnancy so they can resume their life together, finds himself stuck in limbo as Jane, overwhelmed and torn, hasn't made a firm decision yet. When she finally visits him at work, she explains that she's only keeping the child because it's Raphael's last chance at ever becoming a father, but promises that she'll hand the baby over the moment it's born. All she wants, she says, is to spend her life with Michael, and nothing, not even this, is going to stop that.
I'm having the baby. They really want it, and they're a really great couple. And we're giving it to the father, he and his wife.
The young lady calls a family meeting, her boyfriend by her side. She's giving up the baby to focus on her relationship with Michael.
I'm not gonna keep the baby.
But her grandmother doesn't take it well, and within minutes, the room slips into a mild argument, with Xiomara even suggesting she keep the child and sue the incompetent doctor instead. Over at the hotel, the owner might appreciate his wife for standing by him through cancer, but he knows their marriage is over, so he brings up divorce. Petra shuts that down fast, warning that if they separate, Jane might refuse to hand over the baby. She's just stalling, waiting for the prenup to expire so she can walk away with a chunk of his fortune.
Just like I know that you're trying to wait out our prenup to make money off me.
Back at work, he tries opening up to Jane about the pressure he's under, but halfway through, it all flips. He coldly tells her to get a lawyer so they can settle how much she wants for the child. Feeling insulted, she digs into his background, and once she finds out he's Luisa's brother, uncovers some unsettling things about his past. That's when she decides she's keeping the baby. While Jane's mom reconnects with her long-lost father, Detective Michael and Nadine stay close on Zazo and Petra, watching them as suspects in an active case. Louisa, meanwhile, is unraveling from guilt, and when her ex shows up, they end up back in bed. At the hospital for the sonogram, Raphael manages to make it into the room with Jane, where they finally talk more calmly, and he opens up a little. Around the same time, Michael confronts Petra about her affair and warns her to shut it down or deal with the fallout, then goes straight to Jane and tells her to quit her job. After Xiomara's failed attempt to reintroduce Rogelio to their daughter,
"You're gonna back off until I tell you she's ready."
Jane makes it clear she won't be pressured into giving up the baby or derailing her life. She and Michael reconcile once he finally understands where she stands, while Petra convinces her husband to give their marriage one more shot. Later at a party, Jane quietly tells Raphael she's suing Louisa.
So you should know. I'm gonna sue your sister.
But the real tension kicks in when the doctor shows up with their dad, Emilio, and his wife, who turns out to be Rose. Still, none of that compares to how the night ends when Zazo turns up deceased. Xiomara starts hooking up with her baby daddy, but her mom catches on quick. All she knows is he's the famous actor from her favorite telenovela. And even though the man wants to meet his daughter, she keeps the peace at home by hiding his presence from the young woman. Jane finally decides she's ready to lose her virginity, and of course, Michael's in. But on her way to the hotel, she spots Petra hovering near the same room Zazo stayed in before he passed on. Curious, she hides and watches her fiancé walk right up to Petra and follow her into a private space. Turns out the guest wants help retrieving a necklace she left in Zazo's room, and the cop agrees. Though he's clearly uneasy, and hoping all his efforts to keep her clean won't blow up in his face. When the pregnant woman mentions how sketchy Petra looked, he brushes it off and tells her to drop it. Meanwhile, despite promising Xiomara he'd stay under the radar, Rogelio books a room at the hotel and even makes sure she sees him. He takes it further by asking for selfies. Back in Zazo's suite, the officer finds Petra's necklace, but before he can leave, the hotel owner barges in demanding updates. He gets nothing and storms off, leaving Nadine to pull Raphael aside and ask who Zazo's girlfriend was, only to hear he never even knew his friend was seeing someone. Later, Jane tells her grandma she's ready to be with Michael, brushing off the usual speech about waiting till marriage. But before she meets her fiancé, she shares a short dance with Raphael, and while something sparks, she quickly blames it on the pregnancy. Just as the couple's about to take that next step, Luisa, fresh off a hookup with her dad's wife, spots Emilio heading toward the room where Rose is waiting. Panicked, she yanks the fire alarm to stop him, unknowingly setting off a chain reaction that ruins everyone else's night, including Jane's. Petra slips when she casually asks her husband about Zazo's brother, even calling him by name. That instantly raises a red flag, since Raphael had never mentioned a sibling, and she'd claimed not to know much about Zazo. Soon after, a report comes in confirming Petra's mother Magda used her keycard to access an area near the deceased's room just minutes before his passing.
We have proof your mother's keycard was used to access a back stairwell 5 minutes before the murder.
But the accused insists she's innocent. Instead, Petra corners the cop and threatens him, reminding him that tampering with a crime scene, like removing that necklace, could get him locked up.
I won't go to jail, but you will.
The wedding plans finally kick into full gear, but the bride-to-be can't seem to focus. She's been catching feelings for the hotel owner, though she keeps blaming it on wedding stress, just to quiet the noise in her head. That morning, she's back at work and completely ignores everything her mom warned her about staying away from her boss, even zoning out mid-conversation while the man's talking right in front of her. Later that day, with Zazo's demise putting the hotel under scrutiny, Emilio brings in his old ally, Lachlan, to help manage the business while he handles things elsewhere. But the minute Lachlan arrives, it's clear he and Raphael can't stand each other. Meanwhile, the engaged couple sits down for pre-marriage counseling with a priest, and because she's incapable of lying, Jane blurts out that she's had a few fantasies about the hotel guy.
I had a dream about him.
That's all her fiancé needs to hear before he storms out and buries himself in work. Michael's patience is wearing thin, and he's no longer sure the wedding should even happen. But Jane still loves him, so she makes an effort to hold on to what they have before it slips through her fingers. Lachlan's arrival might shake things up even more, especially since he used to be engaged to Petra. She wants nothing to do with him romantically, but is hoping he helps boost her husband's fortunes so she can cash out nicely after the prenup. Xiomara gets a rude awakening when she walks into Rogelio's trailer and finds his ex-wife, who also happens to be his manager, already there.
His manager.
Oh.
And his ex-wife.
But somehow, the actor sweet-talks his way right back into her heart. Meanwhile, Michael is still working overtime to clear Petra of any connection to Zazo's murder. He even goes as far as pushing suspicion onto a hotel staff, doing everything possible to protect her so Jane won't feel pressured to keep the baby. Not long after Lachlan pitches his proposal, Petra and her husband are clinking glasses, celebrating how easily they tricked the guy into putting it forward and embarrassing himself. But their little victory is cut short when Raphael suddenly turns to her and asks straight up how long she's been sleeping with his deceased friend.
So how long were you sleeping with Zaz anyway?
Luisa's sudden disappearance throws Rose into chaos, especially with Jane's lawsuit looming. If things go south, Raphael could lose his share of the hotel thanks to Raphael's benevolence of including his shares in her insurance. While Petra negotiates with Ivan, a hitman who now wants to be paid without pause, Rogelio finally drops the truth and tells Jane he's her father.
I'm your father.
It completely wrecks her mentally, but even that bombshell isn't enough to quell the dreams she's been having about Raphael, who, as it turns out, has been having a few about her too. Billy shows up again pressing Michael for money, but the cop shuts him down, saying he doesn't have it, no matter how many subtle threats the guy throws around. What nobody knows is that Billy's secretly dating Jane's friend from work. Over at the hotel, things are tense between the couple, and Raphael tells Petra to move out while they figure out the divorce, but she reminds him there's a baby involved.
Right now to move out of this apartment while we deal with the divorce settlement.
Think about the baby.
He eventually comes clean and tells Jane Petra cheated with Zazo, and that changes everything. Jane starts rethinking the idea of handing her child to someone like that. She's also trying to reconnect with her dad after blaming her mom for keeping them apart, but their meetings fall flat. He seems all show, and there's no real bond. Petra makes a move to seduce her husband, and for a moment, it almost works. But he pulls back and sticks to the divorce.
These are the divorce papers.
Meanwhile, the cop finally admits to his partner that Billy once took the fall for something they both did as boys, which explains why he keeps showing up now.
You know I was a bad kid. We talked about this, and I don't need him telling you stories.
Rogelio messes up their second meeting by bringing up Xiomara, but the next day he finds her and apologizes. Then Raphael and Rose find the only real lead on Zazo's case bleeding out. Before the guy leaves, he drops one name, Sin Rostro.
Sin Rostro.
The kingpin the feds had been tracking through Zazo. Things blow up again when Jane finds explicit photos of Petra and Zazo among Raphael's things. She snaps and runs back to her mom. And just when Raphael thinks it's all finally ending, Petra agrees to the divorce and then lets her mother talk her into faking a black eye and calling the cops to frame him. After deciding to give Michael some space, mostly because of how often he'd lied to her.
Keep thinking about how many times you've lied to me since then.
You're like hormonal or something.
Be honest with me, okay, Michael?
Taking it off feels so final.
Jane finally gets her student teaching placement, but it's at a Catholic high school, which completely throws her off as she prefers a middle school.
Looks like I'll be teaching at a Catholic high school.
Not long after she calls to apologize for how she reacted when he said he still wants to be part of the baby's life, the cop shows up at the hotel and arrests Raphael for allegedly assaulting Petra. Rogelio, still trying to blend both worlds, sets up a dinner with Jane's family and his former twin stepdaughters, but the girls are nasty to her, even reporting her situation to the school.
Why are we being taught by an unmarried pregnant woman?
Following his orders, Melissa arranges a band for Xiomara's hotel performance, only to spite her by filling it with women the TV star used to sleep with. The twins keep coming for Jane, setting her up to get in trouble with the school, but she takes her mom's advice and flips the script, getting Raphael to distract them while she grabs their phones and digs up what she needs. That night, the soon-to-be parents sit down for a calm chat where the hotel owner finally opens up, calling their messy story fate. Meanwhile, things take a turn when a staff member agrees to testify against Petra,
And she's ready and willing to testify that you left without a scratch.
giving Raphael enough leverage to kick her out of the hotel and out of his life. Jane's plan pays off. After she calls out the girls, they admit their mother was behind all the drama. Instead of gloating, she chooses grace, and after everyone clears things up with the school, she even vouches for them. She later agrees to meet with her Michael, but when the time comes, she breaks off the engagement, and he's crushed. It's finally time for the hotel party. Xiomara is set to perform, but the band falls apart, forcing her to go solo. While everyone's caught up in the event, Petra faces Ivan, a surprise intruder who she knocks out cold using Zazo's ashes after an argument. After the show, the singer pulls Rogelio aside and says it's time to end things so he can focus on their daughter. That same night, Michael finally gets a solid lead on Sin Rostro, just as Jane tells Raphael the engagement is over.
I broke up with Michael.
Then, without thinking too hard, they kiss. After that first kiss, her mom warned her about guys like Raphael.
It's a good lesson. From now on, stay away from guys like that.
But years later, the spark is back and they're both admitting feelings again. He even stops by to see her, though Jane suggests they slow things down since she just called off an engagement. At the same time, the school and parish authorities are using the twins' attempt to shame her through their site to stir up attention. Her pregnancy as a virgin has fans fascinated, so they schedule a surprise meet and greet with her admirers. Michael meets up with her to collect something, but tries once more to get her to reconsider. She stands firm, insisting it's not about the hotel owner. Meanwhile, Petra's got to fix the accidental hostage mess, but all Yvonne wants is money. She tries Lachlan for a loan, but gets nothing. That's when her mother suggests a more permanent solution. Take Yvonne out so they won't have to deal with his boss later. Elsewhere, the detective stumbles on a flower and note left for Jane, saying when Raphael plans to kiss her next. That hits hard, and he walks away from her and stays downcast at work. She eventually heads to the hotel and tells Raphael they need space, at least for now, but that only pushes him toward the club scene, flirting freely, which eats at her. She ends up drinking, but they don't stay apart for long though. They talk it out, go to the mall, and kiss in public like none of it matters. Later that night, she sleeps over at his place after a long heart-to-heart, causing panic until her parents track her down. Petra, still desperate for cash, and now bent on taking Raphael down, turns to Lachlan again and sleeps with him, only to find out he doesn't even have a plan for giving her the money. Meanwhile, Marco, whose kid is in Xiomara's class, tries to visit her, but runs into Rogelio at the house. That's enough to push her to prioritize seeing Marco instead. While Jane waits at the hotel for another dinner date, things unravel. Petra and Lachlan's report leads to Emilio firing his own son. And over at the precinct, Michael's heartbreak sends him right into a reckless affair with Nadine. Petra reveals that Raphael's 20% stake in the hotel is tied to Luisa's insurance, making Jane's lawsuit a serious threat to the business. That's why Emilio made the call to fire him. Jane, unaware of the damage her suit could cause, is left in the dark as Raphael chooses not to tell her. After returning from his failed attempt to locate Luisa, the hotel heir reunites with Jane, and they're immediately back in each other's arms, kissing. Petra's next move kicks off as she pushes him to cough up some capital, throwing in a reminder of how he stole her from Lachlan just to get under his skin. In court, just as the judge is about to rule by default, Luisa walks in, halting the judgment and buying time to respond. With her return, Raphael asks his father for his job back, and Emilio agrees, but only if he answers to Lachlan, who adds a twist of his own. He'll now report to Petra, his new associate.
I thought your father was pretty clear about it. You answer to me.
During a dinner date, Jane has to admit that Sister Margaret's been setting her up to meet couples hoping for a miracle child blessing from the pregnant virgin. Jane tells Raphael she's a virgin and plans to keep it that way till after marriage, but he doesn't take it well. He hits the bar and ends up talking to a woman who offers him a drink. By morning, while Xiomara finally lands a recording session with mega producer Elliot, Jane is reassigned to a private room as a server, only to walk in and see Raphael in bed next to the woman. Shocked, she storms out while he's completely blank on how he got there.
What happened last night?
The escort, religious despite her line of work, later discovers she's been tricked into hurting Jane the Virgin. Guilt-ridden, she hunts Jane down and confesses that someone paid her to set Raphael up. But even with the truth out, Jane still doesn't think they can work. Elsewhere, Rose can't risk Luisa exposing their affair, so she convinces everyone the doctor's delusional, then has her sent in for psychiatric treatment to silence her. Xiomara tells Rogelio she broke up with Marco, and he's visibly pleased. Meanwhile, the detectives lose their latest lead. Jane drops her lawsuit to ease her mom's mind, and when Raphael hears the news, he vows to fight for her, for love, and everything else. Jane starts her morning on a high after hearing from the Cincinnati Review that her story's getting published. But she doesn't celebrate, since the piece casts her mom in a bad light. She opens up to Raphael, who joins her on a city bus for the first time in his life as they head to her prenatal appointment. Things are going smoothly until Petra shows up, crashing the moment with news. She's laying claim to the baby based on a contract with Raphael and Jane's earlier decision not to keep it.
What the hell are you doing here?
What do you mean? This is my baby too.
You have zero claim on this baby.
We drew up a pre-planned adoption contract. So I'm pretty sure this contract will hold up in court.
Meanwhile, Michael suspects the hotel heir might be Sin Rostro, so he pays his brother, who now works at the Marbella, to dig into his background. He comes back with nothing concrete, just the man's wallet. Xiomara's shot with a music exec tanks fast when he realizes she's not in her 20s. She returns home and stumbles across the draft her daughter submitted to the online magazine. Around the same time, Jane meets up with her ex, and after hearing Petra's latest move, he suggests she wear a wire to trap her into exposing a cash grab. Petra plays her part well and almost wins Jane over, but later on, Raphael realizes she's been pretending to be someone else all along, and her story just doesn't check out. The private investigator confirms it. Petra's been using a fake identity. They confront her and push for a divorce, warning her to back off or they'll take it further. That moment brings Jane and Raphael even closer. Xiomara finally meets her idol Paulina, but it turns out Rogelio arranged the whole thing. Paulina encourages her to keep chasing the dream. On Michael's end, he gets a warrant and turns Raphael's suite inside out, but finds nothing. While pacing in the earlier suspect's room, he ends up kissing his partner, right before they accidentally uncover a hidden tunnel. At the same time, Alba, a little too tipsy, heads over to Petra's unit to give her a piece of her mind, but ends up face to face with Ivan. As she tries to call for help, Magda, who's supposedly paralyzed, suddenly rises and shoves her down the stairs. Alba's in a coma, and the doctors can't run full tests until she regains consciousness. Jane stays hopeful, but realizes her grandmother's rosary is missing, so she rushes back to the hotel through a raging tropical storm to retrieve it. Back at the Marbella, Raphael is reinstated by his father while Lachlan's away, and his first task is to help implement staff layoffs. Just then, Petra returns with the signed divorce papers, finally coming clean about her identity and pleading for financial support. The police follow the tunnel beneath the hotel and uncover a hidden surgical room connected to the recovery suites, though all the patients have been moved to a hospital because of the storm. Michael still pushes the theory that Raphael's tied to Sin Rostro, so he brings him in for questioning, but the hotel owner denies knowing anything about it. As the storm intensifies, Ivan uses a sharp object to free himself and escapes, while Jane ends up trapped in an elevator alongside her ex. Meanwhile, the hospital raises concerns about Alba's undocumented status and threatens to contact ICE, prompting Rogelio to try pulling some strings through his government contacts, hoping to stall any deportation. Elsewhere, Rose overhears her husband on a suspicious call and catches a name. She visits Luisa at the mental institution, and though things start off rocky, the two end up in bed under the silent watch of Luisa's longtime mute roommate. Before leaving, Rose promises to tell Emilio about their affair, but first, she digs into the name she overheard, and Luisa tells her. Alba finally wakes up the moment Xiomara offers a heartfelt prayer, promising to abstain until marriage. Grateful, Jane's grandmother thanks the star for handling her immigration issue, until she realizes he didn't. The only other person who could have stepped in was Michael, and she calls to thank him. The detectives continue gathering evidence tied to the underground facility, while Rose drops by Raphael's suite to warn him that Emilio might be dangerous. According to her, he just moved a massive sum and could be planning to flee. Jane has just 1 week left at the school when the students surprise her with a group gift that nearly moves her to tears. Right after, Sister Margaret calls with news that her evaluation score was outstanding and offers a permanent position. This time, the tears come freely. To top it off, her dad surprises her with an intern writer job on his show. She agrees to juggle both roles and even contributes during the brainstorming session, though her idea only makes it into the final script because the big star pressured the team to approve it. Later, she manages to set up dinner with her mom and Raphael. Things start off well, until Xiomara gets overly protective when the man offers to handle her daughter's finances. The two end up in a tense exchange, and although she agrees to apologize, it backfires as she doubles down on his flaws. Meanwhile, the hotel's owner meets with the architect who signed off on the Marbella plans, but the man claims he knows nothing about the tunnel, despite his signature being on the blueprints. Xiomara's chastity vow gets tested when the star drops by for a visit, but just as they're making out, she imagines Alba's face and quickly pulls away. Across town, her daughter's script gets the green light, and the head writer gives honest praise, reminding her she'll only keep getting better. The contractor behind the secret tunnel finally gets tracked down, but he warns Raphael never to return.
Get the hell off my property.
Michael, who's been tailing him, shows up right after and gets badly beaten during his own attempt to gather evidence, ending up hospitalized. At the same time, the writer passes out behind the wheel and is rushed to the ER. While recovering, the bruised cop learns she was brought in too and tries to reconnect, clearly still in love. But Nadine overhears the conversation and, out of frustration, reports him to their superior for all the times he ignored protocol.
I have some information on Detective Cadera that you need to hear.
Petra and Lachlan are back, but things aren't as stable as they seem. Even though he hands her a penthouse, he plants the same flowers Milos, her dangerous ex, used to send before attacking, just to manufacture fear so he can swoop in as the hero. She keeps brushing off her mom's warnings about Lachlan. Eventually, the budding screenwriter decides to stick with the new job full-time, now working closely with Dina and Nicholas. Petra avoids doing her job as the hotel's event coordinator out of fear, but when Raphael hears, he shows up and threatens to withhold her paycheck unless she returns. She does, only to find Milos waiting, claiming he's there to make peace and expose her mother as the real threat. He fakes an attack, then suddenly slices her neck, and Magda jumps from the wheelchair in shock. She'd been pretending all along, and Petra, bleeding and stunned, throws her out. Michael learns Nadine reported him, but sticks to his theory that Raphael is Sin Rostro, while she insists it's Emilio. Rose is caught off guard when her husband tells her to pack for a long trip. She agrees, but the suddenness unnerves her. Rogelio's being written off the telenovela, and Jane was only brought in to help ease the blow. Still, he's bitter, and every attempt she makes to support him crashes against his ego. Luisa sends a letter to Rose through Jane, but it ends up with Raphael, who tells her to stay away from his sister. Later, while walking with his stepmother, he sees his father meeting the tunnel contractor and realizes something's off. Michael finds proof tying Emilio to the tunnel and gets Nadine to follow up. They agree to arrest him. Then Raphael finally reads the letter where Luisa warned Rose their father may have hurt a bellboy. But Rose moves first. She seduces her husband, lures him to a pit, and buries him in concrete. She's been Sin Rostro all along, using the tunnels to run a black market surgery ring. Later, she calls Raphael, voice shaking, and claims her husband fled the country. The cops tell Raphael to report any trace of his father, and while he agrees, it's Rose who leans into the role of concerned stepmother, subtly pushing the idea that Emilio was a monster. Things take a turn when the doctor spots something in the fetus. Jane and her partner are left to choose between a risky test that might trigger a miscarriage or waiting and hoping for the best. Meanwhile, Emilio's assistant comes forward, admitting he had a girlfriend and was with her the night the bellboy was hurt. Milos, still chasing the only woman he's ever loved, pushes too far. Petra, rattled but firm, warns him to back off and walks out. Jane opts for the test, and while it goes smoothly, recovery takes a toll. Her partner sticks close, letting her know he's selling part of the hotel to ease the financial strain thanks to an offer Lachlan brought in. The police question Emilio's lover, but her story doesn't line up with Rose's. That cracks the case wide open, and they realize Rose has been Sin Rostro all along. But before they can act, word comes in that she's vanished, likely tipped off by how close Michael's getting. To lift Jane's spirits, her family teams up with Raphael to surprise her with a graduation celebration. Lachlan finally snaps, kicking Petra out of the hotel to settle the score for what she did back then. But before the dust even settles, Milos drops another bomb. He's just bought 33% of the shares for himself and Jane. It's part apology, part power play to stay in her orbit. Elsewhere, the cops dig through security footage from the night Zazo fell, but everyone they're looking at was on the ground floor moments before the fall, and just like that, the trail goes cold again. The cops warn the couple that Rose is dangerous, but also imply Emilio might have a dark side too, so any interaction with him needs caution. Now aware of who Rose really is, the hotelier suspects his sister was framed and moves to get her out of the hospital, though she's already plotting her own escape. Meanwhile, Petra storms in with flair and, as her first move as co-owner, suggests he step back and become a silent partner. Surprisingly, the fugitive leaves behind a letter for Luisa with the location of the body. It's found quickly, and though grief hits hard and a funeral needs planning, her brother stays focused on the hotel, knowing Petra's next move won't wait. Later, Rose calls to pour out her feelings and suggests they run away together. Still trying to keep control, the grieving son meets with Luisa and politely asks for her shares to outvote the power-hungry ex. She's offended at first but gives in. Rogelio's stuck between a lead role abroad or a supporting one at home, but the real issue is where things stand with Xiomara. Sensing this, Jane calls them both and pushes for honesty. They open up, agree he should stay, and end up kissing. Not long after, Petra tricks Luisa into handing over her voting rights until she returns from a supposed religious retreat, putting herself in charge and driving the hotel owner up the wall. But just as she's settling in, Aaron, Zazo's brother, shows up, and she's rattled. Meanwhile, the cops suspect the so-called trip might be Luisa answering her lover's call. Still, the night takes a softer turn when Jane sets up a cozy dinner. They share heartfelt confessions, and by morning, he asks her to move in. The test results come in and the baby's healthy, but instead of moving in, the soon-to-be mom turns down the offer, saying she'd rather stick to the order she planned her life. Across town, her own mother throws caution to the wind and breaks her vow, giving in to the man she loves. Later on, Jane's literary idol, Angelique, arrives at the hotel, and while she's getting ready to impress her, Raphael steps into the hall with a ring. She doesn't see it coming and quickly pulls him aside, asking for time to think. Back home, Xiomara feels sure she made the right call, though her mother thinks she should just accept it. Petra, still fueled by revenge, doesn't fire Lachlan outright, but wants him working under her instead. He, however, plays a different game, threatening to blackmail her with the sex tape they made. He pitches the whole plan to Raphael to force her to drop her title as the face of the hotel, leak the tape anyway, and then push the board to kick her out. Things aren't smooth elsewhere either. Xiomara jokes about being pregnant, and while the actor seems fine at first, he calls it a disaster once he hears it's a false alarm, which drives a wedge between them. Jane tests her boyfriend's honesty too, and while he passes, he doesn't like being tested at all. Petra releases the tape herself, spinning it as a violation of privacy to win the board's sympathy, but she still needs Raphael's help, so she leans on the fact that she saved the company $1 million by keeping Lachlan on payroll. Together, they bury the guy in tasks, hoping he'll resign under pressure.
Condemning this violation of my privacy.
And what makes you think they're gonna sign this?
I think we should work together.
Eventually, Jane decides to stall the idea of marriage entirely, but right after she shares her decision, her plan to casually bump into Angelique flips when she accidentally ends up as the woman's masseuse. Back at home, Xiomara floats the idea of moving in with Rogelio after talking to her daughter. Meanwhile, Jane runs into her ex on a walkway, and the chat turns cheerful, though Raphael spots the moment from afar and stays silent. Elsewhere, Aaron gets closer to Petra under the pretense of learning more about Zazo. When he asks for their mother's necklace, which his brother once gifted her, she returns it, and he breaks it open to reveal a hidden flash drive. Though she notices a slight shift in Raphael's behavior, Jane takes his word that all's fine and throws herself into writing, only to hit a block. She finds a workshop, but blows it by skipping the fine print, and ends up harshly critiquing someone's work instead of offering encouragement, making the girl cry. At the hotel, Petra suggests booking David Bisbal for their event, but needs Raphael to ask Rogelio, who's friends with the singer. He does, but the actor's more upset that he proposed to his daughter without permission. Raphael apologizes and things settle, though not between him and Jane, who's now shut out from ever bringing up the proposal again. Alba isn't thrilled about Xiomara moving in with Rogelio, which leads to a clash. The next morning, Jane sets out to fix things, starting with the workshop. She then heads to Raphael's suite with a romantic setup in mind, but Petra walks in instead. She and Raphael have been working closely since Bisbal's arrival, even babysitting the singer's dog. Meanwhile, Rogelio wants to redeem himself for a botched movie scene involving a weapon, so he agrees to shadow the detective. On their first outing, the officers get their first lead from the flash drive Aaron passed to Michael. Time with his ex makes Raphael realize he rushed the proposal, so he apologizes, saying he only did it because he's big on family. And in that moment, it hits him. He's only ever heard one side of the story about his mother, so he decides it's time to find her. After hosting both Michael and the couple in their new place, just at different times, Xiomara takes her daughter to a breastfeeding class. The details overwhelm her at first, but Alba stays close, easing her nerves. At the hotel, Petra shares lunch with Aaron, and the chemistry between them shows, drawing a quiet smile from her. Later, Jane meets up with her new friend Andy, unaware she's Michael's ex, though the same can't be said for Andy. They end up babysitting her niece together, and while the crying nearly breaks her down, she quickly adjusts and gives the baby a good time. At night, the hotel throws a huge party without a permit. Police shut it down and threaten to revoke the liquor license, which could cost them heavily. Petra blames herself for letting personal feelings cloud her judgment and turns to Aaron for comfort. They kiss briefly, but guilt cuts in, and she pulls away. Raphael shows up at Jane's, looking for comfort, but he's too drunk to be clear and ends up venting, which sends her away. The next morning, she voices her fears about raising the baby alone.
I'm scared it's gonna all be on me.
But instead of stepping up, he offers to hire help, leaving her shattered. Xiomara's been cold toward Rogelio, frustrated that he won't say he loves her, though he doesn't realize that's the reason. With a little help from Michael, he figures it out and gently asks her to be patient, saying he needs peace between her and his mom before those words can mean anything real. Later, Petra meets Aaron again to thank him. They hug, but something still feels off. He isn't Aaron, it's Zazo, and she tells Raphael immediately. At the childbirth class, where every woman attends with a partner, Raphael shows up for Jane but keeps stepping out to take hotel calls, which frustrates her. Meanwhile, Rogelio's mother, Liliana, visits, and though she's thrilled to meet her grandchild, her rocky history with Xiomara simmers beneath the surface. Alice, the woman Raphael needs to win over to fix the hotel's liquor license, is already on site, but rubs Jane the wrong way. Their exchange turns tense, and the commissioner cancels his dinner with Raphael on the spot. While Jane's family prepares to host Rogelio and his mother, Raphael calls to beg her to salvage the situation by showing up at the commissioner's Easter event. She reluctantly agrees. Over at the hotel, Petra sneaks into Aaron's room, steals a glass, and passes it to the detective, trying to confirm what she suspects. At the yacht club, Alice tries to humiliate Jane by making her sit with her clique, but the younger woman impresses everyone, which only deepens the resentment. Later, Jane accidentally overhears Alice discussing a divorce and comforts her in a rare, vulnerable moment, which sways her to help Raphael after all. The telenovela star finally confesses to his mom that he knew about the pregnancy years ago. Xiomara had told him, and he kept it to himself. Liliana, who'd always blamed Xiomara for hiding it, apologizes but still insists the two should break up, convinced they won't work as a couple. Jane later realizes her boyfriend turned off his phone during their meeting with Alice, something he never does when they're together, and it unsettles her. Before he can respond, his mother shows up. Pressed for answers, she admits to cheating on his father and taking a payout to disappear from their lives. Xiomara runs into Marco, and after a brief moment of honesty, they kiss. But when she rushes home to confess, Rogelio beats her to it. He's already sent his mother away, refusing to let anyone disrespect the woman he loves. While Aaron kidnaps Petra after discovering she's found he's Zazo, Jane meets Raphael to talk, hoping to fix things. But he's too broken to say what she needs to hear, and instead confirms what she feared. They're just too different.
Maybe we are just too different. And we just stop trying to force this relationship.
He ends it, leaving her shattered. The next day she goes to clear the air, but before they can say anything, her friends and colleagues crash in with balloons and gifts for a surprise baby shower, so they're stuck smiling for photos. Later, she learns his mother had visited the day before and figures that's what set him off, so she asks him to reconsider and try again. They see a therapist, who points out how much he's been through and how wide the gap between them is, but says it's nothing that effort can't fix. At the hideout, Zazo lays out his plan to set up Sin Rostro and cash out, but Petra plays along, draws him in with intimacy, then slips off at night with his phone. She calls Michael and drops the location, but before cops arrive, he realizes she's gone. When he finds her, she fights back and stabs him with something sharp. Meanwhile, the actual shower's in full swing, and after a while, Raphael shows up. They play a couples game, and somewhere in the middle of it, he starts to realize he still wants this to work. Later at the hotel, she panics that nothing's changed, pushes them both into the pool naked, kisses him, and even offers to sleep with him, but a guard walks in and thwarts the mood. Back home, her mom reminds her why she decided to wait. At the party, Rogelio runs into an old flame, Jane's writing teacher, and pulls back when she kisses him. The drive found at the hideout gets cracked, and it's a full list of Sin Rostro's contacts. Nadine's on it. When confronted, she confesses she only helped under threat.
She was threatening to kill my family. She knew where they lived.
The next morning, Jane heads in for a meeting, but after a long private session with the therapist, Raphael ends things.
I think that we should end it.
On her way out, Michael catches her and subtly brings up Andy. Later, while Alba's picking Jane up from work, Alba spots Magda and suddenly remembers it was her who pushed her down the stairs. Rogelio confesses, so Xiomara takes it as her cue to admit the kiss with Marco, only for him to shut down and end things right after. Not long after, Dina offers him a spot back on his old telenovela since ratings have dipped. He acts indifferent, says he'll think about it, but ends up returning and is quietly thrilled. Luisa shows up with a new girlfriend, Juicy, reclaims her voting rights, and suggests a wrestling match in the hotel starring her partner. To keep the peace, they go along with it. Jane reports Magda, prompting Michael to launch an investigation, but the mother-daughter duo already has their story straight. After questioning, Magda corners her and threatens to expose Alba's immigration status unless they drop the case. At the wrestling event, Jane updates Raphael about the charges, then Petra jumps in with the defense, and it turns into a full argument. She later arranges a meeting for her parents to talk things out, then digs through photos from that night until she finds one showing a third person was in the room with the mother and daughter. When Michael confronts Petra, she claims it was just a plumber. Later, Luisa and her brother have a real talk. He opens up about the hotel being his entire life and choosing it over Jane. She doesn't think he made the right call. Back home, Jane has a meltdown after falling asleep with a candle burning. It nearly causes a fire, and she breaks down in Alba's arms, worried about ending up a single mom, something she never imagined for herself. At the station, Michael questions Ivan, who confirms he was called in as the plumber that night. In truth, Milos had threatened him to back their story. Meanwhile, Alba finally gets her lunch date with the priest she likes. Petra fires Magda and hands Raphael a forged recovery record claiming her mother couldn't walk until after the fall. He tries bringing it up, but Jane shuts it down. When Petra refuses to leave, since she still holds shares, Jane walks out instead, saying there's no way she'll raise a baby around people like Petra, Magda, or Luisa, who's still tied to Sin Rostro. Jane's already made up her mind about primary custody, so she heads to the hotel to tell Raphael, only to bump into Petra on the way. After a brief exchange, the mother-daughter pair walks off, and Petra smugly tells her mom how close she and Raphael have gotten. Inside the office, Jane lays out her decision, but Raphael thinks it's unfair. He promises to get an apartment if she believes the hotel isn't the right place to raise their child. Later that night, Petra drops by with a drink and conveniently stays to lend an ear. After Michael's medal ceremony for his work on the Sin Rostro case, Jane heads back to the hotel, where Petra tries to smooth things over. But it's less about peace and more about scoring points with Raphael. Jane's school reunion party kicks off, and it's awkward from the jump. After her speech, Jane runs into Stephanie, her high school nemesis, who apologizes for all the mean things she said back then. But once she hears the reason behind it, Jane learns a lesson. People's vulnerabilities are leverage. Meanwhile, Rogelio and Xiomara agree to stay friends, though things still feel off during a rehearsal shoot. Turns out he's terrified of heights and has a meltdown. To protect his ego, she covers for him. Jane's been struggling with her book, so she takes a break and chats with Michael deep into the night. She ends the call to get some rest, and by morning, she's off for a doctor's appointment with Raphael, who casually mentions a quick business trip. Later, he meets his ex to thank her for the support and brings up Jane's plan to limit his access. But when Magda checks out of the hotel, Petra decides it's time to play the hero. She goes through with Jane's setup, turns her mom in for Alba's accident, just to win points with Raphael, though she promises to take care of her. It had been Jane's strategy all along, and it works. Magda ends up in jail. Raphael considers canceling his trip to Spain, not wanting to risk missing the baby's arrival. Luisa urges him again to fix things with Jane, and while he weighs that, Jane and Michael share a quiet moment, agreeing to stay just friends. Raphael tells Luisa he plans to use profits from selling their father's hotel chain to buy out Petra's shares, planning to charm his way through it. At their meeting, he cuts off business talk, gives her a look, and asks her to dinner, and she agrees. Michael swings by to see Jane, but mid-conversation, she has a contraction. They rush to the hospital, only for the doctor to say it's false labor. A quick spat between the two men follows, annoying the pregnant woman enough to leave on her own. Back home, Raphael admits that breaking up was a mistake and wants another shot, but she's not in that headspace and sends him away.
I wish that I could take it back. Make another decision, please.
No, just go.
By morning, Michael gives it a try too, asking if there's still hope. As they talk, he realizes there's not, so he settles for friendship and walks off. Jane, still determined to land a spot at grad school, heads to the director's office even though the deadline's passed. While making her case, real contractions begin. Nadine shows up at Michael's with a deal. Intel on Sin Rostro, who's had her face changed again, in exchange for her family's safety. At the hospital, her labor stalls, giving her and Raphael time to talk, while Rogelio and Xiomara struggle through a tense Vegas trip. He feels like she hasn't accepted him into her family, and she keeps covering for him after another public outburst. While they wait, the couple picks a name. He also admits he was chasing his father's shadow after that bombshell from his mother, and now that he's let go of that, things feel clearer. Nadine's tip checks out. Cops find the doctor linked to Sin Rostro, but he's already deceased. Michael lets her slip away on purpose, knowing she might lead them straight to the source. Hours later, Jane's contractions kick in for real. Her parents abandon their show and arrive just in time for the birth. They name him after her dad, her granddad, and finally, give him Raphael's last name. Petra gets a call from the clinic that there was a mix-up with Raphael's sperm sample. The second half has turned up. After overhearing how he manipulated her, she claims it without telling him. As Jane bonds with the baby, a nurse walks in, saying she's on duty, takes Matteo for a quick check, then slips off his tag, changes her disguise, and hands him to Sin Rostro waiting outside. She then drives off with the child,